Hello, this is Nicole Cooley with Kids First Education, and today I'm bringing you ELA in a flash. Today's standard is RL 6-2. We're going to determine a theme or central idea of a text and how it is conveyed through particular details. Let's first of all understand the difference between central idea versus theme. The central idea is the focus of the text. It will always include very specific details from the text itself. It might include character names or names from the text. It might include specific details of the plot. So the central idea is always going to include specific details from the text itself because it is the focus of the text. Whereas a theme is going to be the message that the author wants to give to the reader. The theme will always be a lesson or words of wisdom that can be applied to any of our lives and will usually not include specific details from the text itself. Normally, the theme statement or theme sentence will not include characters' names or anything dealing with a specific plot or anything like that. What is the reading process or some steps that we can do to determine both of these, the central idea and the theme, within one reading? Well, the first thing we want to do is identify the main characters and the conflict in the text. Then we want to analyze specific details about the characters and then about the conflict. And then we want to determine the central idea first. And then we can determine the theme of the text based on what we see about the characters and the conflict. So let's practice. Today we're going to be reading short excerpts from Fish Cheeks by Amy Tan, which can be found on commonlit.org. I fell in love with the minister's son the winter I turned 14. He was not Chinese, but as white as Mary in the manger. For Christmas, I prayed for this blonde-haired boy, Robert, and a slim new American nose. When I found out that my parents had invited the minister's family over for Christmas Eve dinner, I cried. What would Robert think of our shabby Chinese Christmas? What would he think of our noisy Chinese relatives who lacked proper American manners? What terrible disappointment would he feel upon seeing not a roasted turkey and sweet potatoes, but Chinese food? My relatives licked the ends of their chopsticks and reached across the table, dipping them into the dozen or so plates of food. Robert and his family waited patiently for platters to be passed to them. At the end of the meal, my father leaned back and belched loudly, thanking my mother for her fine cooking. It's a polite Chinese custom to show you are satisfied, explained my father to our astonished guests. Robert was looking down at his plate with a reddened face. The minister managed to muster up a quiet burp. I was stunned into silence for the rest of the night. After everyone had gone, my mother said to me, "You want to be the same as American girls on the outside." She handed me an early gift. It was a miniskirt in beige tweed. But inside, you must always be Chinese. You must be proud you are different. Your only shame is to have shame. And even though I didn't agree with her then, I knew that she understood how much I had suffered during the evening's dinner. It wasn't until many years later, long after I had gotten over my crush on Robert, that I was able to fully appreciate her lesson and the true purpose behind our particular menu. For Christmas Eve that year, she had chosen all of my favorite foods. So the first thing we want to do is identify the main characters and the main conflict. So we have the narrator, Amy, and at the end we have the narrator's mother, so Amy's mother. So what is the main conflict? We know that the narrator, Amy, is embarrassed by her Chinese family's Christmas traditions, especially when the minister's family comes over. She has a little crush on the minister's son, and she wants her and her family to be more American and less Chinese. So some character details. The narrator, Amy, is Chinese American. She likes Robert, normally loves the food that her mother makes, and knows at the end that her mother made all the food that year for her. Now, what are some details about the mother? She's wise, she loves her daughter, and we know that she is proud of her heritage and wants her daughter, Amy, to also be proud of her Chinese heritage. So what are some details about the conflict? Shabby family Christmas. Amy is feeling that internal conflict of wanting to be more American and less Chinese. So she describes her family Christmas as shabby. She describes her relatives as noisy. She's worried about different food than American traditional food and how the minister's family will react to that. She definitely wants to impress the American minister's family, and she's embarrassed and feels shame for how her family acts. And so this is definitely an internal conflict. So the central idea, which is the focus of the text, is that a teenage girl is embarrassed by her Chinese American family's traditional Christmas, especially when their American minister's family come for Christmas Eve dinner. Her mother gives her wise advice at the end of the night, but it isn't until years later that the narrator realizes the lesson her mother was truly trying to tell her. So if we look at those same characters, conflict, and the details for those things, what is a theme that we could determine based on the text? We should all be proud of who we are and our heritage. Acknowledging differences and appreciating the traditions and customs of others can only enhance our understanding of the world and help us to be proud of where we come from. Notice that in the central idea, we talk about the teenage girl. We talk about Chinese American families' traditional Christmas. We talk about the American minister's family. We talk about her mother giving wise advice. So we're putting very specific details within our central idea. But for the theme, we don't have the details in our theme. We're talking about all of us. We're talking about a common theme that it doesn't matter where you come from, where you live, who you are, this theme can apply to you about being proud of who we are and our heritage. And through the details, we can support this theme that can be applied to all of our lives. So again, today we looked at RL 6.2, where we determined the theme and the central idea. We did both of a text and how it is conveyed through particular details. How we did that was to identify the main characters in the conflict. We analyzed specific details about the characters in the conflict within the text, and then we determined the central idea first and then the theme of the text based on our details about the characters in the conflict. This has been ELA in a Flash, and for more ELA in a Flash videos, please visit our website at www.kidsfirst.llc. Happy reading!